morning, Mr. Andrews.
Good morning.
I appreciate you joining me for the first virtual podcast. It's been a long time coming, but we're here.
Well, congratulations getting kicked off the ground. I know it's always fun playing with technology to get things going the first time. So
Yeah, I
appreciate you
wish,
having me here today.
yes, sir. I wish I had some of your tech expertise for this setup. I've been in the studio an hour trying to make sure everything's wired right. Uh,
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I don't know if I would have had the same skills, but you lose them over the years in certain areas and you gain them in other areas. So,
right. Can we talk about your experience with tech companies?
sure. Obviously being at Spring Hill, I was not a tech major coming out. I was actually a business major and thought I was going to be in hospital administration. So, I would
Mm,
say that life takes you in different directions and you try to figure out where your passions are and where the opportunities lay. Starting in the tech world really happened after I got out and kind of started a career. I started my own company right out of college in the benefits world and was a benefits broker and just saw an opportunity where there was a lot of paperwork and manual processes that need automation. And so built a business off of that and actually leveraged some old teammates in helping me build kind of our first version. Since I wasn't in tech, I called it the garage band. I would send requirements over to other Spring Hill guys I went to college with that were actually in the tech world and other businesses. And at night they were programming stuff for me to kind of help me start my first company on the tech side. So, like I said, the world takes you in a lot of different directions. You feel that figure out where you have passion, but it's all about kind of your network and friends and obviously relationships and opportunities you see out there in the marketplace as you start to get into the world of professional business.
right. Coming out of college and considering what to do, I feel a lot of people consider starting their own business. What was the learning curve for you on starting something fresh?
It was big. I was fortunate enough. My dad he was an entrepreneurial, serial entrepreneur and had a bunch of different companies. And he allowed me to kind of come and hang my own shingle and taught me a lot of things about the business that I got into. So I was fortunate from that aspect. So that helped with some of the learning curve. But I took obviously the experience I got out of Spring Hill and not just in the classroom, but I was fortunate to play basketball and also soccer while I was there. And it's just that determination to try to go figure it out and figure out how do you win, how do you leverage some of your teammates to learn more and get better every day at what you do. And
Hmm.
that's really, it doesn't change whether you're in college or whether you get out in the real world and you've been there 1 year or you've been there 10 years. It's all about developing that mindset that you stay curious and you're open to learning and new skills and technology and trends that are out there. And then you take advantage of kind of what those opportunities that lay before you.
Hmm. Well, what were the tech trends when you were in college?
It was kind of funny. I look at coming out. I graduated in 1994 from Spring Hill, and things from a web and email all really just kind of got started. I used to have an assistant where I would literally record my my letters that were going to go out that day, and you had a productive day if you recorded 6, 7 letters that you were sending out to customers in the mail as follow up for meetings. I think
Hmm.
about the number of emails you send every day. I may have
Hmm.
300 or 400 come in a day in an inbox, plus Teams and text and everything else. So it's a different world at a different pace. But I was able to take advantage and leverage the changing, in the 2000s, early 2000, kind of the dot-com boom of, obviously getting access to web and pushing content, not just standalone with inside of organizations as an application or software release, but more of something that could be deployed via the internet. So took advantage of that ride and was able to build a company off of it that I was fortunate enough to run for about 15 years before I sold some of it to private equity, and then was fortunate to run it for about 5 years and sold it again to another company, Blackstone, who's one of the large PE groups. Stone Point Capital was the first company that
Hmm.
bought my first PE firm, bought my first company. And so I've been through the journey of being an entrepreneur and obviously developing organizations, learning that you got to make payroll. That's sometimes tough and stressful. So, I tell people they're thinking about becoming their own boss and starting a company. It's all about what are you doing for other people, right? How are you helping them solve problems? And, I go back to that kind of growth mindset. You just start to learn that you got to be constructive, criticism of yourself and your values and things that you want to do, but also you're out there to solve business problems. And if you do that, it doesn't matter whether you're with a business or you're starting a business, you can be successful.
Hmm. Interesting. What was it like dealing with the private equity company?
It was interesting. I mean, I came from a world where you always just said, hey, we need no debt, and you try to do things based off of cash. You're always concerned about how much leverage you put on things. And, it's a different world. Once you get to private equity, you are using cash and you're leveraging debt in order to accelerate growth. So I hit a point. I realized it was a kind of reflection point where I became basically adverse to risk. And so when you get to a point where your business has grown to a certain point, you're trying to figure out, do you continue to invest at a high scale to get it to the next level? Or do you bring on a partner that can help you do that and, take some risk off the table? And so I was fortunate to find, Stone Point. It was a good partnership and some guys that bought at Hodges Mace and became really good friends with those two, Peter Mace and Greg Hodges, over the years. And we ran a company and were fortunate to sell it, as I mentioned, to Blackstone. And then at that point, we moved into a company called Alight and were able to take it public. So I was
Wow.
fortunate to kind of make that full run and then retired for a very short period of time, realized that wasn't for me, and got back in again with one of my, with Stone Point Capital, asked me to come in and join one of their companies, PrismHR at the time. So
Hmm.
been doing that for about 3 years, having fun. It's a very dynamic organization we're in. We merged two companies together. So we're done 87 acquisitions over the last probably 6 years with this organization and continue to grow it into being one of the biggest payroll HR companies in the country, privately held. So it's been fun. Like I said, you never quit learning, and even though whether you're starting your own
Right.
business or you're continuing to do something else, you learn something every day, but you embrace some of the same fundamentals around hard work and being patient at the same time, not be unwilling to learn something new, do the grunt work and build character. And so you're dedicated to success of your teams to help them obviously be successful in what they're trying to do professionally.
Hmm. What was the process like of your company going public? What did that feel like?
I was part of a team that obviously tried to help get an organization that was a spin out and was also doing acquisitions and growing. But you get to a certain size, and sometimes that's the best path is to take it public. We actually did it over COVID, which was tough, right? There was a lot of the management team had to go and meet and look at kind of strategy or where we were going. So I was part of that management team, and it was fun. It was a journey. It was a lot to learn. It's a different world, a lot of compliance, a lot different of what you have to be ready for analysts, and the smallest things can happen with inside the public sector
Hmm.
that can shift your whole world overnight. As you can see, I mean, you look at DeepSeek when NVIDIA here in the news recently. So things change quickly. You can't rest on what you did in the past to be what it's going to look like tomorrow in the future. And that applies not just to big moves like that you saw in the market, but also just companies. When you go public, it's different requirements and different reporting and different people that you are trying to make sure that are stakeholders and are profitable.
Right. When private equity initially got involved with you and your company, was it more difficult to protect your employees and make sure they stayed on salary and all that?
No, not really. I mean, they obviously were investing and saw the potential of the growth. It's more of, learning how to let go when you own something completely yourself, and all of a sudden you've got another owner that's your partner.
Hmm.
So it's a transition from an ownership perspective, and it changes culturally. So that's probably the most important thing I learned is you can't let the culture change just because the hands change. That's what made you successful,
Hmm.
and you had to continue to embrace that. Um, so those are the things that, you build a brand. I call it, I tell people all the time is, what kind of brand building are you doing for yourself? So are you investing in kind of your lifelong learning, what your goals are around that? You got to be authentic of what you're doing. You've got to embrace anything, whether it's personal, professional, and you've got to, create a distinct personal brand. So you got to define what your values are. And that also applies to your company. And so the reason you get bought or you are successful is because of those. So you can't abandon them. You got to align with other actions. We're able to give you those core principles, and you got to leverage the strengths that you had that made you, a differentiator and obviously very attractive to someone else wanting to be your partner. So that's
Hmm.
that's one of the things I learned is you can't change that culture too much. Things do change as you get bigger because there's more processes, more controls. You go from having 50 people, 100 people. Now I have 6,700 people in this company. So as you
Dang.
continue to change, when we sold it before we went to live, we had 18,000. So when you get to the different sizes at scale, you can't have the exact same processes and controls and culture because you lose it.
Hmm.
But you also got to realize that's also what made you successful. So you got to keep the fundamental things that are really important to that brand and that identity as much as you can.
Hmm. Well, what are your tactics for motivating people beneath you that are employees, and how to, lead them while keeping the same culture?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, and not everybody comes along for that journey because some people are built and really successful in smaller companies that have really tight, intimate relationships, and others are built to be in organizations that, you have more, I guess, say, formalized structures of what you have to do, and it's part of change. Either some people adapt to that change very well, and it's what they want to do, and I always tell everybody, you've got to find the thing that drives you to come to work every day and be successful. Just because it changes hands and gets bigger, that may not be the right environment for you. And you've got to do that self-assessment. You also, don't get too stubborn that I tell people that you walk away from something that has a great opportunity just because it's change. And so you got to embrace those things that could potentially help you build, a new personal brand in a new area. As
Hmm.
I talked about, you got to position yourself around what do you do best and what sets you apart, and whether that's in a small company or a big company. Um, but you got to be, consistent about things that you do and how you act. I would say, uh, as I've had people take the journey, I think about the first days of when I used to have a smaller company, and literally on Fridays we'd push around during what we called our business season, which was open enrollment. The owners would push around a beer cart, right? And we passing out, at the end of the day, a beer for people. You can't do that sometimes when you get to a certain size company, right? The culture changes a little bit, more regulation, more HR. And that's what you got to find out. You got to embrace, you may lose that piece, but you also gain the fun of, going and winning big, brand name Fortune 100, 500 customers, or going and launching, new tech that you're disruptive in a market. You got to find what really pushes your buttons and makes you excited
Hmm.
about getting up every morning and coming to work. So,
Hmm. Do you spend the majority of your time now talking to clients, those big clients, or where does your main work go towards?
yeah, I mean, in my prior company, we had mainly big clients. So we had 70% of the Fortune 100, and half of the Fortune 500 as customers. So spent a lot of time with those, pretty big names that you would know, box names. At this new organization, we actually cater to, not the Wall Street, but Main Street. So we have 140,000 small businesses that we service through our payroll and technology. So you think about
Hmm.
140,000 small businesses, those are the mom and pop shops. It could be, tech shops, could be your local pizza shop or bike shop, that leverage our tech and HR services to run kind of their business. So it's a little different. I spend a lot of time with what we call our channel partners. Some of those are public companies, and some are regional based service providers, which use our technology to service their SMBs, small
Hmm.
businesses.
So what's the main like implementation for them? Is it just automation, or what's the big value add to them adopting?
Yeah, no, it's the big value add is they all have to run payroll. It's one of those things. So we basically are the back office that allows people when you go hire somebody to onboard them. So technology to onboard, fill out your I-9 and the information needed for compliance and tax, all the way through, being able to set up so you can get a paycheck, enroll in your benefits, whether it's health or retirement and so forth. And then also some of the HR compliance. So we are so that a small business can kind of go run and focus on their core competencies and what they're good at. So if you've got someone who owns restaurants and they're in the restaurant business, they need to run payroll and process and have time clocks and people time in and out. We're kind of the technology to help them run that part of their business. And then we also
Hmm.
support kind of back office with our PEO side of the business, where we become, part of their team in essence. If someone has, an HR compliance issue, how to pay tax, run payroll, we're doing that for them from a back office perspective.
Okay, gotcha. Are there any misconceptions that businesses have about adopting HR tech solutions?
Um, yeah, I don't think they have misconceptions. I think they're just looking for strong partners that they can rely on, that have good technology that's going to help them, be a benefit to their benefit, not a distraction. And
Hmm.
so it's really about what services you can add and being able to grow with those customers. Sometimes miscommunication is probably the biggest thing I tell people in the sales process and just in life in general is you got to have strong communication skills to make sure up front that you're able to service a customer. You're telling them the things you can do for them. You're telling them things you can't do, because that's what makes a relationship successful, is making sure you set good ground rules and expectations of what you're going to deliver for them. You can't oversell, right? You can't
Hmm.
undersell at the same time to make sure you're competitive in the marketplace. But good communications is really important.
What are your steps on telling a client what you can't do for them? Because I'm starting off doing some film work on the side, getting contracts with restaurants and stuff to their film, and it's I'm always shooting that we can do it all, we can do this, and it works. But what's your way to be more transparent?
Yeah, I mean, you always want to be, as authentic as you can. The worst thing you can do is overpromise and underdeliver, right? And so
Hmm.
it's okay to shoot big, as long as you can deliver, and they know that what the outcome is gonna look like. It's when you get into things where you try to overpromise something that you know that you really aren't going to have the skill set or be able to close in on, to help them be successful, because they're counting on you just like we count on our people every day to go and execute. And we've got a motto here. It's called violent execution, and it means that, hey, you got to do the small things and you got to do them really well. But you can't wait until, to your point, like, hey, you want to sell the next big thing. You can't wait until you have, we call it the car or the plane ready. You got to start with the skateboard and the scooter and the bike and moving through the process. But depending where you are in the life cycle, but it's definitely something when you're in sales, you want to go capture a market and be able to obviously provide great services for people, but you also got to be realistic. If there's something you don't have, you just got to be transparent and say when it's coming. And a lot of people are okay with that. Like, hey, I don't have that skill now, but I'm going to do this for you, but I will next month because I'm building out, that new technology or that new capability.
Hmm. Hmm. You said you had 70% of the Fortune 100 market.
I did at my prior company, who I sold. We sold one of our company to that went public. So we mainly serviced the large market, in that particular business. Similar business, it was HR, benefits, compliance, retirement services.
Hmm.
So those were our customers. The Targets and the Boeings and the big employers.
Hmm. So with retirement, are you managing 401ks? What's that look like?
I was in my prior business. We did pension plans and retirement plans, 401ks, 403b. So we had technology that would help do that. In my current business, we do that as well. So we have organizations where we own a kind of a 401k company, so that we help with those investment options. So an employer, when they go offer a job, like for instance, you go get a job and whoever you work for may offer you benefits. You have a health and dental and vision option, and then you also may have retirement that's available to you. And so we would be the back office to manage the tech around it, as well as what options you have and compliance for it for companies. So those 140,000 small businesses that we have, a lot of them may offer 401ks, and then some of them will use our technology to be able to do the enrollment and choose the funds that they have.
Hmm. Cool. If you weren't in HR and tech and benefits, could you see another industry that you'd be in?
I've always said, like, when I get done with this life, I would probably go back and try to get back and teach. So that's one of my passions. I wouldn't mind getting back into teaching a few classes in college, just because I've learned a lot. I've got a lot of battle scars of things I didn't do right and failures and so forth to hopefully pass on to the next generation. I know when I was at school, one of my best professors I had on the business side, Dr. Langdon, he actually came from the business world, and he was at the business school and really gave us interesting insights that I never really got to see. And I always said, even at that point, I was like, hey, if I get the opportunity, I'd go back into a college and talk about some of the things that I learned and hopefully share some of that for the next generation. You guys will be the future of our workforce as the rest of us kind of start to phase out. But, anything that, and I tell people all the time, anything you can do to, strengthen and sharpen those communication skills. That's one of the things that he really focused in on, is how do you become an effective communicator and understand the industry. And it's all about, networking and, focus on the strengths and traits that you have, building trust in other people that you have. And I think, getting those insights from him made me realize at one point that hopefully I'd be able to do the same thing.
Hmm. What was his prior business background? What was he into?
He was in a business. Some of it was industrial, but what he brought to the classroom was real life case studies. Talking about, hey, these things happen. This is textbook what it says that we would do, but this is how we actually had to solve for it. These were the ever changing. We actually had a technology back then where they would run kind of a practice. You were running a company and you had these various scenarios that they would input that would cause the market to change, your price to change, competitors to change. It really kind of opened my eyes to there was more to it than on the management side. You not only managing people, but you were managing external factors, whether it was micro or macroeconomics that were putting pressures on a business, and the things that he brought, helping explain what made people successful, all the components that went in, whether it was accounting, whether it was HR, whether it was sales, implementation. All the things tech, all the things that really make a business run. He gave us that insight versus just kind of looking through a single lens, which was helpful.
Yeah, that's been the best for me too. There's a professor at Spring Hill now, John Eads, and he was the CEO of a hospital for a while, was in the military before, and is now super involved in a nonprofit, his nonprofit, Light of the Village in Pritchard. But all of his stuff is real just leadership based, communication based, and everything besides the technical stuff, everything, to really have people on your side. So that class
Yeah,
has been terrific for me.
that's great. Yeah, I think obviously you got to have the fundamentals, and I had a lot of great professors while I was there that teach you the fundamentals of what you need to know around business and
Hmm.
accounting and economics. But it's just good to have people that have actually lived it, and what does it look like to go through contracting, layoffs? What does it look like to deal with expansion, growth, acquisition, all the different cultural changes? Some of the questions you're asking and trying to get out there in the podcast, it's just there's a breadth of information and experiences that people have in the business world, and I wish more people would have that as a second career as they get done, either being CEOs or presidents of companies, or even people at executive leadership that have dealt with it, to get back into
Hmm.
kind of our universities and colleges to help kind of spread that for those individuals that are about to go experience it, just so they've got some background before they get in.
Yeah, definitely. One thing John Eads touches on here a lot is the process of having to fire someone and how challenging that is for the one having to do the firing. Have you experienced that?
Oh yeah, unfortunately, I mean, and some are good and some are bad. I always take an approach as everybody thinks of it being a negative. I kind of say, it also can free people up. They're in the wrong job a lot of times. So you very rarely you do have some that are trying to kind of what I call beat the system. Maybe they're not pulling their weight, and their teammates are having to, and coworkers are having to, pull their weight, meaning they're not putting in the effort and they're trying to take shortcuts and not doing the work. That's pretty rare. I mean, a lot of times it's individuals that, hey, they got hired into the wrong job. It's important to interview and make sure the skill sets align. The job could actually outgrow them, or there may not be a position that fits kind of their needs. So we always try to be respectful. I mean, terminations are probably one of the most difficult things you do, right? Because they impact people. It's not just the job that they're doing. It could impact their family and their financials. So always respectful, and we've always tried to be fair and making sure we can help transition. I'm a big proponent of, even when people leave, I'm always trying to help them try to land the next spot because they're good people usually. And
Hmm.
99% of the time, they're good people, have good skills. They just don't have the skills that we may need. And it actually sometimes frees them up to go do and find the things they can be successful in, because no one likes to come into work every day and grind out and not actually get the results. Right? Nobody
Hmm.
comes in with that as their goal. And so, it's a matter of helping them land to the next spot or help them continue to develop skills. You have a few that, may have a bad attitude or different expectations. And you run into those over the years where sometimes it's kind of a reality check for them that, hey, this isn't how the real world works. And there's an effort level there that you've got to do to be successful. But, those are lifelong learning things that happen a lot of times when things change.
Hmm. A question I have about HR and everything going to tech is after everything during COVID, a lot of things went to remote and hybrid work. Did that make a more incentive or maybe like a warm lead into companies adopting tech HR solutions?
It definitely changed the world. It made everybody accelerated what was already happening, realizing that people can use some of the tools just like, we use everyday Teams and so forth to collaborate. And those collaboration became, more the norm. It also allowed you to get more done instead of, always traveling to see a customer in person. A lot of them didn't want to set up calls. Now the call is kind of the normal. So there are some benefits that have come out of things where you can speed up and accelerate some of the conversations that used to be slowed down by the need to be in person. But it also, with those positives comes some negative. You start to lose the culture of being in a office. So anybody listening, that's probably the biggest thing I could see that I've noticed since COVID is those that have in-office policies. I know it may seem great to work from home, but if you're early in your career, you try to find a place you can go work in an office. You can't replace those interactions that you have with people and how much you learn. They call it the cooler talk, but it's really just the interactions with people that you're having, what you're going to learn of how to handle a meeting, how to be in a meeting, how to handle certain situations with inside of an actual office structure, and then building those friendships and relationships and network. You can't replace. And
Hmm.
so, not to mean you can't be successful in a work from home scenario, but not in your in my opinion, not in your early years, especially. You've got to get into a place where you can kind of learn hands on from others and be mentored, and then also give you a chance to really see. I think it's all shifting back. We're a full work from office 5 days a week. I'm in. I really never have been a work from home. But we do have a lot of people that are remote. I'd probably say half my team is remote, and it's because we look for the best talent. That's the other thing it's given us the ability to do is you get senior people that if I need the right talent, I can get them anywhere in the world.
Hmm.
And I've got people all over the world, from India to Brazil to Colombia to Spain. Doesn't matter. We'll find the talent that we need. But
Hmm.
at the same time, we have a lot of people in office, and there's a lot of benefits to that.
Besides technical expertise, what do you look for in your employees?
Great communication skills. I mean, I can't say it enough. I mean, it's invaluable to really understand how well somebody can communicate either in person as well as written. It's key in every industry, and
Hmm.
and also just are they able to do they feel very authentic and genuine, um,
Hmm.
and do they talk about themselves, or they talk about how they're going to help other people grow, and it's one of those things you got to figure out what someone's strengths are, and building trust, but that doesn't happen in an interview process, right? You're looking for people that have confidence when they're interviewing, but they also are humble at the same time, because you want to be teachable and respectful as they're trying to learn the business. But they've got to have sharp verbal, written communication skills, and that's really key.
Right. Good. Well, you hit on all my questions, knocked them out of the park. I appreciate you taking the time this morning, and I, it's a treat to talk to one of the members of the 90 '94 basketball team. Is that right?
Yeah, we were 90 to 94 was when I was there, but yeah, we had a good run, a good group of people. So those lifelong relationships. There's 8 of us that most of us married someone from Spring Hill. My wife's Spring Hill, so been married almost 30 years, and most of us have been. So
Nice.
we've been fortunate. But yeah, that group stays together pretty tight. We probably see each other 3 or 4 times a year. So we're
Wow.
fortunate just from those relationships from Spring Hill. And then there's a whole another group of those guys that came through that we all still stay in touch. So
Well, do you have any advice on who I should track down next for a podcast so I can bug in their email and add to one of the 300 to 400 emails they get a day?
um, there's a bunch. I don't know if I know he's on the board, but Derek Wright. I don't know if you've talked to Derek before. He's been very successful from a business perspective and gone through similar journeys. And then you got Kirk DePriest, who's a doctor, so it may give you a different perspective of the journey he went through. And then PJ Thielen, who's been very successful. He's a CEO of another company.
Hmm.
But you've got a bunch that you could reach out to.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
All right. Have a great day. Thanks, Ethan.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Bye. I would like to personally thank everyone who tuned into this episode of the SHC Division of Business podcast. Our aim is to give young professionals insight into their desired field or potential job of choice. If you gain anything from this, or have any compassion whatsoever, please share with someone you see fit.